Captain Jake Morrison stepped off his cargo ship and looked around. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The landing pad at Haven Colony should have been busy. Workers should be moving supplies. Children should be running around playing. Instead, there was only silence. Jake walked toward the main buildings. His boots crunched on broken glass. The smell of smoke filled the air. Where happy families had lived just 2 weeks ago, now there were only burned houses and twisted metal. "Hello?" Jake called out. His voice echoed off empty walls. No one answered. He checked his radio. "This is Captain Morrison calling Haven Colony Control. Please respond." Static. Nothing but static. Jake kept walking. The colony's main street was covered with ash. Cars sat abandoned, their windows shattered. Shop signs hung crooked. The school playground was empty. Swings moved slowly in the wind, making a creaking sound that made Jake's skin crawl. At the colony center, Jake found what was left of the government building. It was just a pile of rubble. But something caught his eye. 3 tall crystal spears stuck out of the ground where the building's front door used to be. The crystals were blue and seemed to glow with their own light. Jake had seen these before, in military briefings. They were Zephyrian calling cards. The alien race always left them behind after their attacks. His hands shook as he activated his emergency transmitter. "This is Captain Morrison aboard the Terra Nova. Haven Colony is gone. Everyone is dead. The Zephyrians did this." 3 days later, Admiral Lisa Crawford stood in her command center on Earth. She had read Morrison's report 5 times. Each time made her angrier. 50,000 people, she said to her aide. 50,000 innocent civilians. The aide, Commander Pete Johnson, nodded grimly. "The investigation team confirms it, Admiral. No survivors. The attack was systematic. They didn't just destroy the colony. They hunted down every single person." Crawford looked at the photos from Haven. The Zephyrians hadn't used normal weapons. They had used something that burned people from the inside out. Families had died trying to protect their children. The lucky ones died quickly. "What about the other colonies?" Crawford asked. "All safe so far, but everyone is scared. The colonists want protection." Crawford understood their fear. The Zephyrians were known across the galaxy for their cruelty. They were tall, with hard shell-like skin and 4 arms. Their ships were fast and deadly. Most species tried to avoid them, but humans had always been peaceful traders. They had thought their small size and non-threatening nature would keep them safe. They were wrong. Dr. Nathan Price arrived at Haven Colony a week after Morrison's discovery. He was a scientist who studied alien species. His job was to figure out exactly what had happened. What he found made him sick. The Zephyrians hadn't just killed the colonists quickly. They had taken them alive first. In the ruins of the hospital, Price found equipment that wasn't from Earth. Alien medical devices, tables with straps, containers that once held human blood. "They were experimenting on us," Price told Admiral Crawford over the video link. "Taking samples, testing how much pain humans could survive. This wasn't just an attack, it was research." Crawford's face went pale. "Research for what?" "I think they're planning to attack more human colonies. They wanted to know our weaknesses, how to hurt us most effectively." In the colony's ruins, Price found a small teddy bear. It belonged to a little girl named Amy Chen. She was 6 years old. The bear was burned but still recognizable. Price picked it up and felt tears in his eyes. The news about Haven spread across human space like wildfire. Every human colony, every space station, every ship received the same message. The Zephyrians had murdered 50,000 innocent people in cold blood. On Earth, President Karen Hughes called an emergency meeting of the Terran Congress. The large hall was packed with representatives from every human world. "My fellow humans," Hughes began, her voice steady but her eyes filled with rage. "We have been attacked without provocation. Our people have been slaughtered like animals. The galaxy must know that this will not go unanswered." The Congress voted Unanimously. For the first time in human history, they declared total war on another species. Admiral Crawford was given command of all human military forces. Her first order was simple: build ships, build weapons, build an army. We're going to make the Zephyrians pay for every life they took. Across human space, factories that had been making farming equipment started making weapons. Shipyards that built cargo vessels began constructing warships. Young men and women lined up at recruiting stations, wanting to join the fight. The galaxy's other species watched nervously. They had always seen humans as peaceful traders. Humans sold them food and manufactured goods. They built colonies on quiet worlds and minded their own business. No one expected this reaction. Ambassador Vexhai of the Altarian Republic sent a message to President Hughes. Surely there must be a peaceful solution to this conflict. The Galactic Council stands ready to mediate. Hughes's response was broadcast across the galaxy. The time for peace ended when the Zephyrians decided to torture our children. Tell your council this. Humanity remembers our dead, and we will have justice. Captain Morrison volunteered to join the military. He couldn't forget what he had seen at Haven. The empty streets, the burned homes, the crystal spears marking the spot where thousands had died. He was given command of a new destroyer called the Haven's Revenge. The ship was built specifically for hunting Zephyrian vessels. It was fast, well-armed, and carried a small container of soil from Haven Colony as a memorial. 6 months after the massacre, the human war machine was ready. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, weapons designed specifically to kill Zephyrians. Admiral Crawford stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked out at the assembled fleet. More ships than had ever been gathered by any species in galactic history. Today we begin our march to justice, she announced to her captains. The Zephyrians thought we were weak. They thought we would hide and do nothing. They were wrong. We are going to show them what happens when you murder human children. The fleet moved out towards Zephyrian space. Behind them, Earth's factories continued working day and night, building more ships for the war. The entire human species had united behind a single goal: make the aliens pay for what they did to Haven Colony. In the darkness between stars, the war fleet traveled toward its first target. 50,000 innocent people had died screaming. Now it was time for the Zephyrians to learn what human anger really meant. 6 months had passed since Haven Colony died. Earth looked different now. The peaceful blue planet had become the center of the largest military buildup in galactic history. General Alan Brooks walked through the new Detroit shipyards. Giant factories worked day and night building warships. The sound of hammering metal never stopped. Sparks flew from welding torches. Cranes lifted massive gun turrets into place on half-finished destroyers. "How many ships do we have ready?" Brooks asked his assistant, Colonel Mary Stone. 2,000 and counting, sir. More coming online every day. The new dreadnoughts should be finished next month. Brooks nodded. Before Haven, humanity had maybe 50 military ships. Now they had an armada that made other species nervous. The peaceful traders were gone. In their place stood a species ready for total war. In a secret laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Sophie Mitchell worked on humanity's new weapons. She had been studying Zephyrian biology for months, using samples taken from old battle sites. "Their shells look tough," she told her team, "but they have a weakness. These aliens are vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies. Hit them with the right energy wave and their nervous systems shut down." Her assistant, Dr. Bob Harris, looked worried. "Are you sure this will work?" "I tested it on tissue samples. The effect is immediate and fatal. We can build weapons that will go right through their armor like it's paper." Mitchell's team worked 20 hours a day. They built electromagnetic pulse cannons, energy rifles, and even small grenades that could kill a Zephyrian instantly. Every weapon was tested and retested until perfect. In orbit around Mars, Captain Danny Foster stood on the bridge of his new ship. The UHS Vengeance was the largest warship ever built by humans. It was 3 times bigger than anything they had made before. The ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "All systems ready, Captain." reported his first officer, Lieutenant Sam Wright. Foster looked out at space through the main window. His ship was surrounded by other vessels, cruisers, destroyers, support ships, all waiting for orders to attack. The Zephyrians. Good, Foster said. The aliens think we're weak. They're about to learn how wrong they are. The Vengeance's crew trained constantly. They practiced battle scenarios. They learned how to work together during combat. Foster pushed them hard because he knew the war would be brutal. While humans prepared for war, the galaxy tried to stop them. The Galactic Council was a group of different alien species that usually kept peace between worlds. Their leader was Ambassador Vexhai from the Altarian Republic. Vexhai sent many messages to Earth. Please reconsider this path of revenge. The loss of Haven Colony was tragic, but war will only lead to more death. Admiral Crawford met with Vexhai on the neutral station at Alpha Centauri. The alien diplomat was tall and thin with blue skin and large eyes. He seemed genuinely worried about the coming war. Surely we can find a peaceful solution, Vexhai said. The Galactic Council can force the Zephyrians to pay compensation for their crimes. Crawford looked at him with cold eyes. Compensation? They tortured 50,000 of our people to death. They experimented on our children. There is no amount of money that can fix this. But your response seems excessive. You are building an army large enough to conquer half the galaxy. We don't want to conquer anyone, Crawford replied. We just want justice for our dead. The Zephyrians made this personal when they decided to butcher innocent families. Vexhai tried again. Other species are becoming frightened. They see your military buildup and wonder if humans plan to attack them too. Tell them this, Crawford said, standing up. Leave us alone and we'll leave you alone. But if anyone else decides to attack human colonies, they'll face the same fate as the Zephyrians. The meeting ended badly. Vexhai realized that humans could not be talked out of their war. Meanwhile, Commander Beth Parker was doing dangerous work behind enemy lines. She was a spy, trained to gather information about alien species. Her mission was to sneak into Zephyrian space and learn their plans. Parker disguised herself as a trader from a neutral species. Her ship looked old and harmless. She visited Zephyrian stations and listened to their conversations. What she learned made her blood run cold. The Haven massacre wasn't random. It was part of a larger plan. The Zephyrians had been studying humans for years. They saw humanity as a useful test species for their biological weapons research. Phase 1 was successful, Parker heard a Zephyrian officer say. The human subjects provided excellent data on pain tolerance and survival instincts. When do we begin Phase 2? Asked another. Soon. We have identified 12 more human colonies for testing. Once we perfect our techniques, we can begin harvesting humans on a larger scale. Parker's hands shook as she recorded the conversation. The Zephyrians weren't just planning another attack. They wanted to turn all of humanity into laboratory animals. She managed to escape Zephyrian space and rushed back to Earth with the intelligence. Admiral Crawford read her report in silence. They were planning genocide, Crawford told President Hughes. Haven was just the beginning. They want to capture and experiment on millions of humans. Hughes felt sick. How many colonies did they target? 12, including New Boston, Riverside, and Hope Station, all defenseless civilian populations. The president made an announcement that night. She told the human species about the Zephyrian plan. The reaction was immediate and furious. Any remaining voices calling for peace were silenced. Even the most peaceful humans now supported total war. Back in the laboratories, Dr. Mitchell worked even harder. Her electromagnetic weapons were ready, but she wanted to build something special, something that would send a message to any species thinking about attacking humans. I want a weapon that can disable an entire Zephyrian ship at once, she told her team. Something that shows them we're not just defending ourselves, we're hunting them. Her team built the Omega device. It was a massive electromagnetic pulse generator that could be mounted on the largest warships. One shot could kill every Zephyrian on a ship instantly while leaving the vessel intact for capture. The weapon was installed on the Vengeance and 5 other dreadnoughts. Captain Foster tested it on an old cargo ship filled with Zephyrian tissue samples. The results were perfect. As the months passed, human space became an armed camp. Every colony now had defense platforms. Patrol ships watched the borders. Civilian ships carried weapons in case of attack. Children learned about the Haven massacre in school. They saw pictures of the burned colony and the crystal spears left behind. A generation grew up knowing that aliens had murdered their people, for fun. Captain Morrison finished training his crew on the Haven's Revenge. His ship was smaller than the dreadnoughts, but it was fast and deadly. Morrison planned to use hit-and-run tactics against Zephyrian supply convoys. "We're not just fighting for revenge," he told his officers. "We're fighting to make sure no other human colony suffers like Haven did." The time for talk was over. Admiral Crawford looked at her massive fleet and knew they were ready. The Zephyrians had started this war when they decided to torture human families for scientific research. Now humanity would finish it. "All ships, prepare for departure," Crawford ordered. "Target Kepler 442b, objective total destruction of enemy forces. Show them what human anger looks like." The great fleet began moving towards Zephyrian space. Behind them, Earth's factories continued building more ships, more weapons, more tools of war. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's peaceful nature was a choice, not a weakness, and that choice had just been revoked. The human war fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. 2,000 ships appeared in perfect formation, their weapons powered and ready for battle. Admiral Crawford stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UHS Retribution. Through the main window, she could see Kepler 442b in the distance. The planet was a major Zephyrian military base, home to over 1 million alien soldiers and their families. "Scan the system," Crawford ordered. "I want to know the position of every enemy ship." Lieutenant Chris Adams worked at his sensor station. "Admiral, I'm reading 300 Zephyrian vessels in orbit around the planet. Mix of cruisers, destroyers, and support ships. They're moving into defensive positions." Crawford smiled coldly. The Zephyrians had detected the human fleet and were preparing to fight. That was exactly what she wanted. "Open a channel to all ships," she commanded. "This is Admiral Crawford to all human vessels. Today we begin our hunt for justice. Remember Haven Colony. Remember our dead. Show these aliens what happens when they murder human children." Across the fleet, human crews prepared for battle. Gun crews loaded electromagnetic pulse weapons. Fighter pilots started their engines. Marines checked their assault rifles and armor. Captain Danny Foster watched from the bridge of the UHS Vengeance. His massive dreadnought carried the new Omega device, Dr. Mitchell's superweapon designed to kill Zephyrians instantly. "Range 2. Enemy fleet?" Foster asked. 50,000 kilometers and closing," replied his weapons officer, Commander Tony Clark. "Good. Target their command ship. We're going to cut the head off the snake first." The Zephyrian fleet moved to intercept the humans. Their ships were sleek and dangerous-looking, with curved hulls and multiple weapon ports. The alien commander, War Prime Kethvar, had never lost a battle. "Human vessels approaching," reported his aide. "They appear to be traders who have armed themselves." Kethvar clicked his mandibles in amusement. The Zephyrians had studied human ships before. They were slow and lightly armed. This would be an easy victory. "All ships attack. Destroy the humans and take prisoners for our research laboratories." The two fleets met in the space between planets. Laser beams and missile trails lit up the darkness as hundreds of ships engaged in desperate combat. But something was wrong. The human weapons weren't behaving like normal energy beams. When they hit Zephyrian ships, the alien crews inside started dying instantly. Their nervous systems shut down, leaving the vessels drifting helplessly. "What is this?" Kethvar demanded. "Our armor should protect us." His science officer studied the readings. "The humans have developed some kind of electromagnetic pulse weapon. It passes right through our hull plating and kills our biological systems." Kethvar felt fear for the first time in decades. His mighty fleet was being destroyed by an enemy he had thought weak and harmless. Captain Morrison led a squadron of smaller ships in a flanking attack. His destroyer, the Haven's Revenge, darted between larger vessels and targeted Zephyrian supply ships. "Fire," Morrison ordered. His electromagnetic cannons lit up 3 enemy vessels. The Zephyrian crews died in seconds, their ships going dark and beginning to drift. "This is for Amy Chen," Morrison whispered, thinking of the little girl whose teddy bear he had found in Haven's ruins. "And for all the other children you murdered." The battle became a massacre. Human weapons tore through the Zephyrian fleet like knives through paper. The aliens' superior armor and shields meant nothing against Dr. Mitchell's electromagnetic pulses. Foster's dreadnought reached the enemy command ship. The Vengeance was 3 times larger than any Zephyrian vessel, bristling with weapons and armor. "Fire the Omega device," Foster commanded. A massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from the Vengeance. The beam struck the Zephyrian flagship and passed through its hull like the ship wasn't even there. Every alien on board died instantly. War Prime. Cathavar felt his nervous system burning as the electromagnetic energy coursed through his body. With his last breath, he realized the humans weren't the helpless prey species he had thought. They were apex predators who had been hiding their true nature. The surviving Zephyrian ships tried to retreat, but the humans were faster. Captain Morrison's squadron chased down the fleeing vessels and destroyed them one by one. No enemy ship escaped. In 3 hours, the entire Zephyrian defense fleet was destroyed. 300 alien warships drifted dead in space, their crews killed by weapons the Zephyrians had never imagined possible. Admiral Crawford looked at the tactical display. Not a single human ship had been lost. A few had taken damage, but Dr. Mitchell's weapons had made the battle completely one-sided. "Begin orbital bombardment of military targets," Crawford ordered. "I want every Zephyrian weapon factory and barracks destroyed." Human ships moved into position around Kepler 442b. Their weapons targeted alien military installations on the planet's surface. Electromagnetic pulse cannons fired down from orbit, killing Zephyrian soldiers in their bases while leaving the buildings intact. Colonel Ray Thompson led the ground assault. His Marines landed in dropships and moved to secure the Zephyrian research facilities. What they found there made even hardened soldiers feel sick. The aliens had built laboratories for studying other species. Cages held prisoners from dozens of different worlds. Surgery tables were stained with blood from countless victims. Computer files contained detailed records of torture experiments. "Admiral, you need to see this," Thompson reported over the radio. "We found the Zephyrian research data. They've been doing this to other species for centuries. Humans weren't their first victims." Crawford studied the files that Thompson transmitted. The Zephyrians had captured and tortured millions of beings from across the galaxy. They had perfected techniques for keeping victims alive during the worst possible experiments. "They're not just soldiers," Crawford realized. "They're a species of sadists who enjoy causing pain." The news spread across the galaxy within hours. Other species learned that the humans had won a complete victory against the feared Zephyrians. More importantly, they learned why the war had started. Ambassador Vexhai sent an emergency message to Admiral Crawford. "We had no idea the Zephyrians were conducting such experiments. The Galactic Council supports your actions." Other species began coming forward with their own stories. The Centauri Federation had lost colonies to mysterious attacks. The Tau Cetians had seen ships disappear near Zephyrian space. Everyone had suspected, but no one had been strong enough to investigate. Captain Foster walked through the captured research facility. In one room, he found containers labeled with species names: human, Altarian, Centauri, Tau Cetian. The Zephyrians had been collecting specimens from everyone, but the human containers were different. They were marked Phase 1 complete. Begin. Preparation for Phase 2. Foster realized that Commander Parker's intelligence had been correct. Haven Colony was just the beginning of a plan to harvest all of humanity. On Earth, President Hughes addressed the human species. "Today, our forces won a great victory, but this is not the end. The Zephyrians have committed crimes against the entire galaxy. We will hunt down every one of their ships. We will find every one of their bases. We will make them pay for centuries of murder and torture." The victory at Kepler 442b sent shockwaves through Zephyrian space. Their invincible fleet had been destroyed without causing a single human casualty. Their research facilities had been captured. Their secret experiments were now known to the galaxy. War Prime Jethkar, the new Zephyrian military commander, called an emergency meeting of the collective's leadership. "The humans are not what we expected," he admitted. "They have weapons we cannot defend against, ships larger than ours, and they fight with a coordination we have never seen." The Zephyrian High Command made a desperate decision. They sent messages to their allies, begging for help against the human assault, but species after species refused. The Draconian Empire said they were too busy with internal affairs. The Vegan Confederacy claimed they were neutral in this conflict. Everyone had learned what happened to those who opposed humanity's war machine. Admiral Crawford looked at intelligence reports from across Zephyrian space. Enemy forces were retreating to their core worlds. Some ships were trying to escape to other galaxies. "They're scared," she told her staff. "Good. Fear is what they should feel. Fear is what our people felt when the Zephyrians came for them. The first battle was over, but the war was just beginning. Humanity had shown the galaxy that they could fight. Now they had to prove they could win a total victory against an enemy that had terrorized other species for generations." Captain Morrison stood in the ruins of a Zephyrian laboratory and scattered soil from Haven Colony on the floor. 50,000 humans had died to teach the galaxy this lesson. Never underestimate a species that protects its young. News of the Kepler 442b victory spread across human space like wildfire. In every colony, every space station, every ship, humans celebrated their first major victory against the Zephyrians. But Admiral Crawford knew this was just the beginning. "How many Zephyrian worlds are left?" she asked her intelligence chief, Colonel Mike Stevens. Stevens looked at his reports. 47 confirmed military bases, 23 major colonies, their home system of Zephyria Prime. They're pulling back their fleets to defend their core worlds. Crawford studied the star charts. The Zephyrians controlled a region of space about 50 light-years across. Before the war, it had seemed huge and threatening. Now it looked like a prison that was about to be stormed. "They're trapped," she realized. "They can't run because we're faster. They can't hide because we know where they are. All they can do is wait for us to come for them." Captain Ellen Hayes commanded the stealth ship UHS Ghost of Haven. Her job was to sneak deep into enemy territory and gather intelligence on Zephyrian defenses. The ship was painted black and designed to be nearly invisible to alien sensors. Hayes and her crew had been behind enemy lines for weeks. They watched Zephyrian ships fleeing from outer colonies. They recorded panicked communications between alien commanders. They saw a species that had ruled through fear now experiencing terror themselves. "The Zephyrians are abandoning their frontier bases," Hayes reported to Admiral Crawford. "They're concentrating everything around their home worlds. But their morale is broken. Half their commanders are talking about surrender." Crawford smiled grimly. Good. She wanted the Zephyrians to be afraid. She wanted them to know that humanity was coming for them, and there was nowhere to hide. But not everyone in the galaxy was happy about human victories. Some species worried that humanity had become too powerful, too aggressive. They wondered if humans would stop with the Zephyrians or keep expanding their war. Ambassador Vexhai visited Earth to meet with President Hughes. The Altarian diplomat looked nervous as he sat in the Oval Office. "Your military successes are impressive," Vexhai said carefully. "But some members of the Galactic Council are concerned about your methods. The complete destruction of Zephyrian fleets seems excessive." President Hughes looked at him with cold eyes. "Excessive? The Zephyrians tortured 50,000 of our people to death. They were planning to do the same to millions more. How exactly should we have responded? Perhaps with more restraint. Other species are beginning to fear humanity." Hughes leaned forward. "Good. Let them fear us. For too long, the galaxy ignored Zephyrian crimes because they were afraid to fight back. We're not afraid. And now the Zephyrians are learning what happens to species that murder human children." Vexhai tried a different approach. "But surely you don't plan to exterminate the entire Zephyrian species?" "That depends on them," Hughes replied. If they surrender and turn over their war criminals, they might survive. If they keep fighting, we'll finish what they started. While diplomats argued, the human war machine kept growing. Dr. Sophie Mitchell had developed new weapons that were even more deadly than her electromagnetic pulse cannons. Her latest creation was a virus that attacked Zephyrian nervous systems, spreading through their ships like a plague. "We don't need to board their vessels anymore," she explained to Admiral Crawford. "We just need to get one infected Zephyrian onto their ship. Within hours, the entire crew will be dead." Crawford was impressed, but troubled. "Are you sure it only affects Zephyrians?" "Completely sure. I tested it on tissue samples from 20 different species. Only Zephyrian biology is vulnerable. The virus was loaded into special warheads and distributed to the fleet. Now human ships could kill entire Zephyrian crews without damaging their vessels. The aliens' own ships would become weapons against them." Captain Danny Foster led the next major assault, targeting the Zephyrian stronghold at Wolf 359. His dreadnought, the UHS Vengeance, had been upgraded with Dr. Mitchell's latest weapons. The battle was even more one-sided than Kepler 442b. Zephyrian ships died before they could get close enough to return fire. Their crews fell victim to human biological weapons. Within 6 hours, another major alien base had fallen. "This isn't war," Foster told his first officer, Lieutenant Sam Wright. "This is extermination. The Zephyrians created weapons they couldn't defend against." But the most shocking discovery came from Dr. Nathan Price, who was studying captured Zephyrian records. He found files that proved the aliens had been committing genocide for over 500 years. "They didn't just experiment on other species," Price reported. "They completely wiped out 17 different civilizations. Entire races that we thought died from natural disasters were actually murdered by the Zephyrians." The evidence was overwhelming. The Vicarian Empire, which had supposedly collapsed from economic problems, the Helix Confederation, thought to have been destroyed by a plague, the Spiral Republic believed lost in a stellar catastrophe. All had been secretly exterminated by Zephyrian research programs. When this information reached the Galactic Council, even the most peaceful species changed their minds about the war. Ambassador Vexhai sent a message to President Hughes. "The Altarian Republic formally supports human military action against the Zephyrian collective. They must be stopped." One by one, other species joined the chorus. The Centauri Federation offered to provide supply bases for human ships. The Taucedians shared their intelligence on Zephyrian movements. Even the normally neutral vegans agreed to help. Captain Morrison's destroyer squadron had become legendary throughout human space. The Haven's Revenge and its sister ships specialized in hunting down fleeing Zephyrian vessels. They had destroyed over 100 enemy ships without losing a single human life. Morrison stood on his bridge and looked at his crew. Young men and women who had volunteered to fight after seeing the pictures from Haven Colony. They wore patches on their uniforms, showing a teddy bear, Amy Chen's teddy bear found in the ruins. "Sensors picking up 3 Zephyrian ships trying to reach their home system," reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant Kate Brooks. "Intercept course," Morrison ordered. "They're not going home. They're going to pay for what they did to our yaoi people." The 3 alien ships tried to run, but human vessels were faster. Morrison's squadron caught them near an asteroid belt and destroyed all 3 without mercy. The Zephyrians had learned to fear the sight of human ships, but fear wouldn't save them. Back on Earth, families gathered around televisions to watch news reports from the war front. Every human victory was celebrated. Every Zephyrian defeat was cheered. Children drew pictures of human spaceships destroying alien vessels, but some humans began to worry about what they were becoming. Reverend John Miller gave sermons asking if humanity was losing its soul in the quest for revenge. "We must not become the monsters we're fighting," he told his congregation. "Justice is one thing. Genocide is another." His words found support among some humans, but most people remembered the pictures from Haven Colony. The burned houses, the murdered families, the crystal spears marking the mass grave of 50,000 innocents. Admiral Crawford received reports that some Zephyrian colonies were trying to surrender. Alien civilian populations were sending desperate messages begging for mercy. "What should we do with them?" asked Colonel Stevens. Crawford thought about it carefully. The Zephyrians had shown no mercy to their victims. They had tortured children and conducted experiments on living prisoners. They had planned to exterminate all of humanity. "Accept surrenders from civilian populations," she decided. "But all military personnel and anyone involved in their research programs will be tried as war criminals." It was more mercy than the Zephyrians deserved, but Crawford knew that humanity had to remain better than their enemies. They were fighting for justice, not just revenge. The war continued to spread across Zephyrian space. Human fleets struck at military bases and research facilities. Alien ships were destroyed or captured. The species that had once terrorized half the galaxy was being systematically hunted to extinction. War Prime Jethkar sat in his command center on Zephyria Prime and watched his empire crumble. Fleet after fleet had been destroyed. World after world had fallen to human assault. His own people were beginning to question whether they could win. "Perhaps we should consider peace negotiations," suggested his aide. Jethkar clicked his mandibles angrily. "Peace? We are the Zephyrian collective. We do not surrender to inferior species." But even as he spoke, Jethkar knew the truth. The humans weren't inferior. They had proven themselves to be the most dangerous predators in the galaxy, and they were coming for his homeworld. Captain Hayes's stealth ship watched from the shadows as Zephyrian civilians fled their outer colonies. Entire populations were trying to escape to neutral space, carrying whatever belongings they could save. "It's almost sad," Hayes told her crew. "They look just like human refugees fleeing disaster." But then she remembered the research files. The torture chambers, the experiments on children. Her sympathy disappeared. "They made their choice when they decided to murder innocents for fun," she said coldly. "Now they get to live with the consequences." The galaxy watched in awe and terror as humanity's war machine rolled forward. Species that had once thought humans were weak traitors now. The human fleet assembled at the edge of the Zephyria system was the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. 3,000 warships hung in space like a constellation of death, their weapons charged and ready for the final battle. Admiral Lisa Crawford stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked out at Zephyria Prime, the alien homeworld that had spawned centuries of galactic terror. The planet was beautiful from a distance. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. It was hard to believe that such a peaceful-looking world had produced a species of torturers and murderers. "Final sensor sweep," Crawford ordered. "I want to know the position of every enemy ship, every defense platform, every weapon that could threaten our forces." Commander Tony Richards worked at his station. "Admiral, they have 800 ships in defensive positions around the planet. Orbital defense platforms at every major city. Ground-based missile batteries covering the main continents." Crawford nodded. The Zephyrians were making their last stand. They had pulled back every surviving ship, every weapon, every soldier to defend their home. It would not be enough. "Open a channel to all human vessels," she commanded. "Today we end this war. Today we get justice for Haven Colony and every other innocent world these monsters destroyed. Remember our dead, and show no mercy to those who showed none to our children." Captain Danny Foster prepared his dreadnought, the UHS Vengeance, for the final assault. His ship carried the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built, including Dr. Mitchell's newest creation, a quantum disruptor that could tear apart entire enemy fleets in seconds. "All weapons systems ready, Captain," reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Dave Carter. "Good," Foster replied. "Target their command. Ships first. Cut off their head and the body will follow." The Zephyrian fleet moved to intercept the humans. War Prime Jethkar commanded the defense from his massive battleship, the Bone Crusher. He knew this was likely his species' final battle, but he refused to surrender. "Today we show the galaxy that the Zephyrian collective does not bow to inferior races," he told his fleet. "Fight with honor and die with pride." The two fleets met in the space between planets. The battle that followed was visible from Zephyria Prime as explosions lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks. But it was not really a battle. It was a massacre. Human weapons tore through the Zephyrian fleet like invisible death. Dr. Mitchell's electromagnetic pulse cannons killed alien crews instantly. Her biological weapons spread through enemy ships, turning their own bodies against them. Her quantum disruptors simply erased Zephyrian vessels from existence. Captain Jake Morrison led his squadron of destroyers in a flanking attack. His ship, the Haven's Revenge, fired repeatedly at enemy vessels. Each shot was dedicated to a specific victim from Haven Colony. "This one's for Amy Chen," he whispered as his weapons destroyed a Zephyrian cruiser. "This one's for the Miller family. This one's for everyone they murdered." The alien defense fleet was destroyed in less than 4 hours. 800 Zephyrian ships became 800 drifting hulks filled with dead crews. Not a single human vessel was lost. War Prime Jethkar felt his ship shaking as human weapons tore through its hull. His crew was dying around him, killed by electromagnetic pulses that passed through their armor like it was paper. With his last breath, he realized that his species had made a terrible mistake. They had thought humans were weak because they were peaceful. They had forgotten that the most dangerous predators often hide their true nature until threatened. Admiral Crawford looked at the tactical display. The orbital battle was over. Now came the ground assault. "Begin bombardment of military targets," she ordered. "I want every Zephyrian weapon factory, every military base, every research facility destroyed. Human ships moved into orbit around Zephyria Prime." Their weapons targeted alien military installations across the planet. Electromagnetic pulse beams struck down from space, killing Zephyrian soldiers in their bases while leaving civilian areas untouched. Colonel Ray Thompson led the Marine assault. His soldiers landed in dropships and moved to secure the Zephyrian capital city. They met little resistance. Most alien military forces had been killed in the orbital bombardment. Thompson's troops moved through the city streets, past frightened alien civilians who watched from their windows. The Marines wore patches showing Amy Chen's teddy bear, the symbol of humanity's murdered innocence. At the center of the city stood the Collective's government complex, a massive building where Zephyrian leaders had planned centuries of genocide. Thompson's forces surrounded it and demanded surrender. The remaining Zephyrian leaders came out with their hands raised. They looked nothing like the proud conquerors who had once terrorized the galaxy. They were broken, defeated beings who knew their empire was finished. Captain Ellen Hayes secured the Zephyrian research archives. The files she found contained detailed records of every species the aliens had exterminated. 17 entire civilizations wiped out for scientific curiosity. "My God," Hayes whispered as she read the reports. "They didn't just kill billions. They studied how to make death as painful as possible. They turned torture into an art form." The evidence was overwhelming. The Zephyrians hadn't just been soldiers or conquerors. They had been a species of sadists who enjoyed causing suffering. Their research programs had perfected techniques for keeping victims alive during the worst possible experiments. Admiral Crawford stood in the ruins of the main Zephyrian research facility. Around her, human soldiers gathered evidence of alien war crimes, computer files, video recordings, medical equipment stained with the blood of countless victims. She could have ordered the complete extermination of the Zephyrian species. Her forces had the power to sterilize every alien world, to erase them from the galaxy forever. Many humans would have supported such action after seeing the evidence of Zephyrian crimes. But Crawford made a different choice. "The war is over," she announced to her fleet. "The Zephyrian military has surrendered. Their government has fallen. Their ability to threaten other species has been destroyed." Captain Morrison stood in the Zephyrian capital and scattered the last of Haven colonies, soil on the steps of their parliament building. The circle was complete. Justice had traveled across the galaxy to find the monsters who had murdered innocent human families. President Karen Hughes addressed the Galactic Council from Earth. Her words were broadcast across known space, heard by every species that had ever feared Zephyrian aggression. "The Zephyrian Collective is finished," Hughes announced. "Their military is destroyed. Their leaders are captured. Their research programs are ended. Never again will they torture innocent beings for their sick experiments. But Hughes also delivered a warning that made every species in the galaxy pay attention. Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks humanity can be attacked without consequence. We are peaceful by choice, not by weakness. We prefer to trade and build and explore. But if you threaten our families, if you murder our children, you will face the full fury of our species. The surviving Zephyrians were placed under permanent human supervision. Their worlds became protectorates. Their military disbanded. Their scientists monitored to ensure they never again conducted experiments on living beings. Some Zephyrians adapted to their new reality. They learned to live peacefully under human oversight. Others fled to distant parts of the galaxy, carrying the memory of their species' defeat. Ambassador Vexhai visited Admiral Crawford on her flagship as the human fleet prepared to leave Zephyrian space. "Your victory has changed everything," the Altarian diplomat said. "Every species in the galaxy now knows that humans are the ultimate peacekeepers." Crawford looked tired but satisfied. "We never wanted to be conquerors. We just wanted justice for our dead. And you got it. But you also became something more. You became the species that other civilizations turn to when monsters need to be stopped." 5 years later, Captain Morrison stood in the gardens of New Haven Colony, built on a world gifted to humanity by species grateful for the end of Zephyrian terror. Children played among memorial stones that honored the original Haven's victims. The galaxy had changed. Humanity was now recognized as the ultimate military power. Not because they conquered worlds, but because they had proven they could end any threat absolutely when necessary. Other species approached humans with deep respect, knowing they were dealing with sleeping dragons who preferred peace but were perfectly capable of total war. Trade flourished, exploration expanded. The galaxy became safer because everyone knew that humanity was watching. Admiral Crawford, now retired, tended her garden on Earth. She had planted flowers from dozens of worlds, including some from the ruins of Haven Colony. The blooms grew strong and beautiful, fed by soil that remembered both tragedy and justice. A new alien species made first contact with humanity that year. Their ambassador approached with careful respect, having heard the stories of what happened to those who threatened human civilians. President Hughes welcomed them warmly, but delivered humanity's standard message to all new contacts. "Peace is our preference, but never mistake our kindness for weakness. Treat us fairly, and we will be your greatest allies. Threaten our people, and you will learn why the galaxy fears to anger sleeping giants."